Hi there. Welcome to one and all for this session of Virtual Tech Conference. This is the first ever VTC that we are doing as part of the South Asia MVP Award program. Basically, this session is desired state configuration in PowerShell 4.0. This is done by PowerShell MVP Ravikanth C. Ravikanth, I know him personally well. He's a Bangalorean. He runs Bangalore IT Pro user group. He runs the PowerShell Bangalore user group, so 2 user groups in Bangalore, and he's a PowerShell geek. So over to you, Ravi. I'll be there. I'll be sitting back. If you have any problem, I'll be there in the standby. So just let me know. And over to you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Lohit. Good morning, everyone, and good evening from wherever you're joining. So today we're going to look at the desired state configuration, one of the flagship features in PowerShell 4.0. It's a major feature released within 4.0. Rest all the features that you see in 4.0, what are previously available today. There are mostly minor changes or bug fixes, but desired state configuration is a real killer feature, that changes the way administrators and the DevOps guys would do configuration management in the data center, etc. Right? So, about me, I work for Dell Incorporation. Like Lohit said, I'm a PowerShell MVP since 2010. I am a founder and editor of PowerShell magazine. If you are following PowerShell, you wouldn't have missed PowerShell magazine. Those are some of the coordinates I put there, my Twitter handle and the Facebook page, etc. You can also, look through my blog and see if you have any questions. Feel free to drop the question there as a comment or a contact. I'll definitely get back to you if I can help you with that. So let's move on with the agenda, whatever we have for today. The desired state configuration, like I said, it's a part of Windows PowerShell 4.0, and so 4.0 itself, you need to install Windows Management Framework 4.0, which is a preview download at the moment, or it comes built in with Windows Server 2012 R2 preview. So for this session, all my demos, I'm using Windows Server 2012 R2, so that I don't have to install WMF 4.0, etc. And also there are known issues between the cross configuration or the cross communication between Windows Server 2012 R2 and the down-level operating systems like Server 2008 R2 running WMF 4.0. So all my demos today are using Server 2012 R2. Okay. So the first question people ask is, what is desired state configuration? Why do we really need that? As Microsoft says, desired state configuration is a new management platform. It's not just a toolkit. It's a management platform and a framework for managing configuration data, right? So, for example, if you see in any data center, the configuration drift is a natural phenomenon, right? So you must be deploying hundreds and thousands of servers, and over time, there are changes that happen to the configuration, both in terms of software configuration and hardware configuration. You might be having your own processes to go track all that, but at the end of the day, over a long period of time, you will see a configuration drift. So in terms of, let's say, disaster recovery scenarios, etc., when you have to perform a DR, you will see that your configuration is way different from the the DR configuration that you have. So that is the configuration drift issue that you see, right? Which is pretty bad, which is very bad for our data centers, especially when you really want the DR to happen, due to the configuration differences, and the DR completely fails in that case, right? So that is one issue that the data centers are facing today. And another issue is the DevOps, right? So DevOps guys, they build, they destroy systems, they build systems based on the release cycles, etc., and they want to maintain that configuration. They want the deployment to happen seamlessly every time they have a new build release, and they want to deploy that and do a unit testing of that, etc., in a very consistent manner, right? That seamless deployment is definitely another issue that the DevOps engineers face day in, day out, right? So the desired state configuration feature, DSC, I'll call it DSC from now on. DSC basically solves these two problems. It solves the configuration, basically helps you prevent configuration drift, and it helps DevOps guys do a seamless deployment of this configuration or consistent deployment of the configuration within the data center or outside of it for dev and test environment, right? So you might have seen other tools also like this. For example, Puppet, Chef, and CF Engine, etc. They also do similar configuration management in terms of the language constructs. Also, you might see very all these tools very similar to each other. They're all solving the same problem, but when it comes to desired state configuration within PowerShell, it's actually bound to the native operating system. The native operating system, along with PowerShell 4.0, gives you the capability, right? It's also standards-based management along with DSE. So you have better control over if you have devices that can be managed using the standards-based management protocols, etc., or interfaces. Desired state configuration can play a very big role there. Okay. So what does DSE provide? It basically provides us language extensions. As we will see in further slides and the demos, etc., you'll see that there are a set of configuration keywords, etc., that DSE provides to make it easy for us to write configuration documents. And it also provides commandlets to manage the configuration. You can actually create a configuration document. You can push it to the target servers using commandlets that DSE provides. And of course, it has built-in resources. We will see what are resources, etc., and some demos around built-in resources. But in general, resources are basically the instance that you want to manage, right? For example, you want to update the registry configuration or registry keys across multiple servers that you have in the data center, right? So that registry can become a resource for you. Or you want to manage Windows features and roles in a consistent manner. So in that case, the Windows features and roles itself, that will become a resource for you, etc. Okay? We will see as we go through the demos, etc. I'll show you some of the resources and how to use some of these commandlets also, and we'll see how to build custom resources also, right? So before that, let's look at some DSE basics. Okay, don't worry about the configuration syntax that is all here, the configuration document, etc. This is how it looks when you write a configuration document in DSE. Okay, now in this. The first thing that you will observe is configuration. This is a keyword that is introduced along with PowerShell 4.0 to support DSE. So following that is a name of the configuration that I want to perform. This is just a name identifier. Basically, it can be anything. Configuration is a fixed keyword and then followed by a name. And then what we have is a node. A node is basically another keyword, or you can think of that as your servers, etc. So this is my server name that I want to manage. This is where the configuration needs to be applied, whatever configuration is mentioned here, right? So a node represents a server here, right? So a configuration encloses a node, and then what you have is the resource. So you have a resource. In this case, it is archive resource. Archive resource basically says that you can create a zip file and then extract that on a remote system at some folder that we want to, right? So that is another one. So this is the archive resource. Similar to that, we have multiple other resources, right? And they're all built-in resources. One of the things that you see in common for most of the resource configurations in a DSE configuration document is a keyword called ensure, right? So there's an attribute actually. So that ensure equals to present basically says that this configuration needs to be applied. In this case, the scripts.zip needs to be extracted to C:\scripts. Suppose the moment I put ensure equals to absent, the C:\scripts folder will be deleted if it exists on the remote server. Okay, so every resource, even the custom resources, it is recommended that they implement ensure key attribute and give them the values present in absent to make it consistent across multiple resources. Okay, this is some of the demos where we'll actually see how the ensure equals to present or ensure equals to absent really works. Okay, and this is all in a .ps1 file. So it is a normal PowerShell script that you already know, except that you have a declarative syntax here. Right. Declarative syntax basically tells an automation engine in general that what needs to be performed and not how it needs to be performed. The way we write PowerShell scripts is imperative in nature by default. We basically tell PowerShell or any automation engine in an imperative style how it needs to be done, and indirectly we achieve what needs to be done. Right. So that is the imperative syntax or imperative style of programming. But when it comes to DAC, they've implemented a declarative syntax, and this is what you see here. We basically tell what needs to be done, and the underlying resources take care of how it needs to be done. Okay. The configuration is like if you see, this is pretty much like a function definition in PowerShell. It can also take parameters. You can have a param block and then put all your required parameters there, and then use those parameters within your configuration. Right. And DFC uses PowerShell remoting. So all the systems that you need to manage with DFC must have PowerShell remoting enabled. And each configuration document, so this is the configuration document we said, and each configuration document gets converted to a MOF file. It's a managed object format for the for people who know SIM standards and all the DMDF standards. MOF documents are basically it's like a text file that defines all the classes, resources, etc. So every configuration document basically gets converted into a MOF file for execution on the remote system side. So I basically said, there are multiple resources, there are multiple built-in resources that DSC provides us. There are different things like you have archive, we just saw that. Environment basically lets you create or manage environment variables on target systems. You have file resource, which can be used to manage files and folders on remote systems. You have a group, basically you can manage your local groups, local computer groups, etc. using group resource. These are all built-in resources, by the way. Log can be used to write event logs about what your DSC configuration management is doing, etc. Package can be used to install packages like setup.exe and MSA packages, MSA installers, etc. The packages that use MSA installers, etc. That can be managed using the package resource. You can go install and uninstall packages remotely. Process, you can start and kill processes remotely. Registry, of course, as the name sounds, you can go update registry, modify, delete, add registry keys and values, etc. using that. Role is for Windows and Windows features and roles that you can manage using the role resource. And similarly, there are many others, right? Script, surveys, you have user, etc. And of course, you can build your own resources, right? Once you see how to build a configuration document for any of these resources, the same knowledge can be used even for all the built-in resources and of course for the custom resources also. And PowerShell IEC provides intelligence for all the keywords. It can also autocomplete or give you suggestions with respect to the attributes of the resources, etc. So we will see some of that in our demo right now. Let me switch to the demo. Right. So do you all see the my remote desktop screens here?
Yes, we can see you, Ravi.
All right, cool. This example we have already seen. So this is a configuration document. Like I said, this is a .ps1 file. What I have defined here is there is a node, one computer that I have here, which is server 3 WS 2012 is the name. And I'm saying that there is a zip file over here at this UNC path. What I want to do is I want to extract the C: scripts on this node. Okay. Ensure that present basically says that it has to be extracted. Okay. So now how do I apply this configuration? Simple. What we do is we go to the console here. What I'll say is I just have to run that PS1 script first, so which is DSC archive best is the name, I think. What happened to this? Okay, so let's go execute this. Give the archive test. The moment I execute that, there is a mock file created with the server name, with the node name that is specified in the configuration document. Right, this is the node name, and that's the mock file. You see that. We can actually open that mock file and see that what is there inside that. Since I said it's a text document, you can actually see what is there inside that. So this is the resource ID and the path, whatever they have mentioned in terms of attributes, etc. Everything gets converted into a mock definition here. Now, so once you have that, what we do is we have commandlet called start DSC configuration. I'll use wait and verbose so that I can see what exactly is happening on the remote system or what the DSC configuration engine is really doing there. And I'll specify a path here and say which is archive resource demo, right? So I execute that. And as it executes, you see a list of things that are happening here. What you essentially need to see here is, see there's the configuration, MSSP archive resource is starting, and it says archive of whatever script.zip was unpacked to destination C: scripts. If I go back to that server and see in C:, I should be able to see that folder. Okay. What was the name that we used here? SRV3. I'm very sorry. SRV3. It goes see there. You should see the scripts folder, right? So that whatever script was there, script.zip was there in the remote UNC path. We just took that. We extracted that onto another remote system without even touching any of that console, etc. It's all done remotely and using the simple configuration document that you see here. So similarly, there is a file resource, right? Like I said, you can copy files and folders, etc. In this case, what I'm really doing is I have custom resource that I developed for managing host files, etc. So I need to copy it to a destination path on a different server. Let's do it again on this server 3. Try to execute this. Which again gives me another mock file. So what I'll do is start DSC configuration, SRV3. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Path should be copy host files. Okay. So if I go back to SRV3 and look at its C: PowerShell folder, basically, I should have that host file, whatever module that I created should be there in my Windows PowerShell modules directory. Modules, I've got a PS desired configuration, there's providers, I have it there, right? It should have all my files, etc. Okay. Now, similar to that, you can have other resources also very similar. You can find out, for example, I've not used all the attributes of a file resource, but if you want to find out what are different attributes possible there, you can. There are two tricks. One is basically you can type something wrong. Maybe I'll say just test, and it immediately shows me a list of all possible attributes there, right? So these are the different possible attributes. Or what you can do is you can also place your cursor on the resource name and do control space bar. That also gives you a list of all the attributes possible for that particular resource. Okay. So that's how you basically look at the different attributes of the resource and then go configure all that. But if you have observed, I've specified a single node name here. In the other resource, archive resource also I've just specified a single name. But what if you want to execute this across multiple systems at the same time? I've been telling you that this can be done across the data center, hundreds and thousands of servers will receive the configuration at the same time, etc. But how that can be done? We can actually use this Param capability as a configuration document here now. So I have $node.
Ravi?
Yes.
There is a question. Would you take it now or do you want to park it for later? It's related to what you're showing now.
Okay. Can we create this manually rather than using PowerShell? It's just a mock file which can edit, Notepad just to know if it can be done. Yes, you can create that mock file yourself. It's not necessary that you have to put it in a configuration document and run it. At the end of it, we are generating a mock file, that is it. So if you know how to write mock files, you can actually do that. Okay, let's move on with this. So what I've specified here is a $nodes parameter, and then I'm using the $nodes as a node identity here. And then I'm specifying over here, if you see, -nodes, and I'm specifying a list of computers that I want this to be executed on, right? So this is how you can actually include multiple computers as a part of this configuration document. But remember that every time you do this, a mock file gets generated for each computer that you specify here, each node that you specify here. Okay, so this configuration document is about how we can install 7-zip from a UNC path on these remote computers using DSE. So let's see how this can be done. Very similar to that, what we have been doing, I'll just execute this. As you see, there are 2 mock files created, and they're under the folder multi-node demo. I'll just start the DSE configuration with that. And it's actually parallelly installing on both the computers. If I go here, see what are the nodes. SRV2 and 3 should have 7-zip installed now. Yeah, you see that? And 3 will also have that. Now, I told you that doing an absent here will should uninstall that. Let's see that also if it works or not. Since we changed the configuration document, we have to rerun the PS1 file and regenerate the mock, because that is where the entire configuration is getting stored. So I'm regenerating the mock file. I'm running the configuration again. See the configuration basically. And now if you go back and check, see that 7-zip is deleted, is uninstalled from the remote computers. Okay. So that's how we can use package, resource, and multiple nodes, and specifying basically the multiple nodes, etc. So package, we just saw that. We'll see one more where we basically see the dependency between different resources here. For example, if you see the configuration document, I have a group resource where I'm basically saying that my local group should be created to something present here. But at the same time, I'm saying members to include is test user. When I run this, I have to make sure that test user exists first so that I can actually do a members to include, right? For that reason, I've created another resource here. I've put another resource configuration where I'm basically saying test user, make sure that test user account is there. If it is not there, go create it. Okay? So that we specify a dependency using a requires attribute here. So requires, I'm saying user is the resource, and user demo is the resource name that I provided here. And in this case, for creating a user, I need to provide a password, etc., and that needs to be given as a credential object in PowerShell, right? So let's run this. It will prompt me for some password. So I'm basically saying my username is test user and some password. So the mock file is generated for me. I'll do a start DSE configuration. I'll say user group demo. Okay. So we created this on SRV3. Let's go check. I refresh this. I have the test user created. I go to groups. I have a local group created. And test user is added as a member of that. And if you see the output here, when I ran this configuration document, it basically ran user demo first, right? Also, we have group demo as a part of the configuration document at the beginning of the configuration document. Since the dependency was there on user demo, it actually ran user demo first, and then it completed that and then moved on to the group. creating the equipment, then adding the member, etc. Right? So this is how the resources help you basically. And like I said, it's a kind of declarative syntax, and it's pretty easy to write these configuration documents once you know how to use the the structure or the syntax itself, right? It's very easy, and all of the resources and custom resources should behave the same way. And once you learn how to write one configuration document for a given resource, you can easily apply that across multiple resources and custom resources as well. Okay. Now let's go back to the slides and see something about the custom resources. How do we write custom resources, etc. We'll spend a few minutes there, and then we'll come back and see how exactly I've written the host file resource and how it can be tested, etc. We'll see that. Now, custom resources can be created, and if you have the knowledge of creating PowerShell modules, PowerShell scripts and modules, you can create a custom resource yourself, right? It's that easy. You don't really require any other knowledge. All you have to know is how to create a PowerShell script. If you know how to manage a given or a specific configuration or a given configuration element using PowerShell, like creating those configuration elements and deleting those configuration elements and modifying those configuration elements, then you can actually write your custom resource yourself. Now, to write a custom resource, all you need is three things. One is a mock file describing the resource itself. On TechNet, there is a pretty good example of how you can create mock files and the syntax and all that. We'll also see an example here. And then what you need is a PowerShell module, a PSM1 file and a PSD1 file, right? So that is it. Once you have all these three files, you basically copy them to the location that is specified here, which is under the PS desired state configuration module. Right? Within the PowerShell module, you'll require three functions. These are default. These are mandatory. These three functions are required. Target resource is where you perform the task of actually configuring the resource, whether it's creating or deleting the resource, etc. Right? Or modifying the configuration itself. It should be done in set target resource function. Test target resource function is used to basically check whether a given configuration document is valid or not. For example, we just saw a 7-zip install kind of a configuration document where I'm installing 7-zip on multiple nodes. So the test target resource for that particular package resource must be what it must be doing is it will go check whether 7-zip is installed or not on the ensure keyword. For example, if ensure is set to present and the package is installed on the remote system, then it will return true. Ensure is set to absent, package is still installed, then it will return false. Okay? Things like that. So test target resource basically tests whether the configuration is available and applicable on the remote system or not. Test target resource basically gets the state of the resource, state of the configuration on the remote system. So it basically returns the hash table of the configuration that you requested. Again, don't worry, we will see an example. It's pretty easy to write that, and I'll show you step by step how it is done. And all of these three functions should be implemented in an idempotent manner. That basically means that get target resource and get target resource should not change the state of the configuration. Okay? They are there to check only whether the configuration is valid or not. Right? The set target resource is capable of modifying the configuration, but at the same time, if the configuration is already modified and the end user still calls set target resource, it should not generate an error. It should silently come out of the configuration, right? Whatever configuration that was requested, right? So that is what the idempotent nature of the configuration is. So it should be implemented that way. Okay. So moving on to the custom resource development, I have a mock file here where I have created something called host file, this is my class. I am given the same friendly name here. And over here, I'm basically specifying different types of different attributes that are used in the resource configuration. For example, I have key here, which basically says this is a mandatory parameter, and it's a parameter that or an attribute that can be used to uniquely identify my resource. Okay, so my host name and IP address, and I'm managing basically host files, etc. These two are the things that are mandatory, right? Also have another here, which is called ensure. This is something that I have to implement as a part of custom resource, so that end user can say ensure equals to present to add a host entry and ensure equal to absent to delete a host entry, right? So this is written as a write qualified with a write qualified here. Write basically says that this property can be updated as required. So in the configuration document, this can be present or absent. Okay. There are many other qualifiers. You can also put a read for read-only attributes. The value map that you see here basically shows what are different possible values for this attribute. Right. And once you have this mock created for your resource, you have to name it with the class name dot schema dot mock. So this is the name of my mock file for the custom resource that I wrote. Okay. And the module, the three functions are mandatory. We already talked about get target resource. It should always return a hash table of the configuration that is requested. A set target resource should perform whatever operation is requested, whether present or absent. We have to implement that in set target resource. And the set target resource always should return a true or false, basically a Boolean value, right? So we will see in a minute why is that. And all the parameters and all these three functions should be same. So if set target resource implements a set of attributes, and those set of attributes should be available on get target resource and test target resource also. Okay, so that is a mandatory requirement there. Okay, you will also require a module manifest. So once you create the module with all the functions that are required, you can actually use the new module manifest commandlet to go generate a PSDM file for it. Right. So those three files are required. One is the mock file. Second one is the PSM1 file containing these three functions that implement the logic, the configuration logic. And the module manifest, which basically describes your module that you just created. Okay. So once you have these three files, copy them to a folder that I specified there under PS design state configuration folder in the PowerShell modules folder. Right. Now, one thing I said was test configuration should always test DS target resource should always return a true or false value, because the DSP execution flow, whenever in the demos I showed, I always started using the start DSP configuration. I specified a path to that, right? So once we have something like that, what DSP engine does is it invokes the test target resource function first, check whether whatever configuration requested is valid or not. If it is, if it returns false, the test target resource returns false, that is when it runs set target resource. Okay. Now, imagine a situation, we are writing for example, for the same resource that I'm describing here, the host file resource. I set a configuration like this particular host name and IP address written into the host file, and I say ensure equals to present. Okay. Now, when that particular configuration is checked, the test target resource runs. It verifies if it is already present in the host file. I'm asking you to write it into the host file, but if it is already present, it should return. It should basically return true, right? Because it's already present. I don't have to do the job again. So it returns true, and it basically ends. It basically skips the set target resource function completely. Let's quickly see an example there. Then that becomes clear, because the debugger output clearly tells us what happened within the function. Okay, let's see which one shall we see. Yeah, the user group itself, because we just created the It already exists, my local group exists, and the user also exists here. So when I run this particular configuration document again, nothing should happen, right? Because everything is already present. And I'm also asking you to present only. I'm not asking you to delete or anything. Let's see, let's run it again and see. I don't have to recompile it again because I've not changed anything there. I just run it. With what it basically did here, if you see, starting to process the set request, then it goes to the user demo. It's performing a test operation, if you see, and the test operation, whatever time it took, and then immediately it says skipping set operation. It completely skips the set operation, right? And then it comes to the group, and it does the test again. It returns true, and then it immediately skips that set configuration for a group demo also, right? So this is how the test target resource is used before calling the set target resource function, okay? And that has to be really coded into the the module that you write. In our case, we have the file module that I'm just showing you. Let's see that real quick. So what I have here is this, okay? So this is my module. I have a get target resource function. I'm basically specifying two mandatory parameters, hostname and IP address. I'm setting this ensure by default to present. It doesn't really matter whether you set a default value or not. And like I said, the get target resource should always return, hash table of configuration data that you have. And that's what I'm checking here. I'm basically checking. I'm building a host entry, by the way. This is how generally host file entries are written, right? So you have an IP address separated by tab and the host name. I'm just writing that. And I'm checking the host file for that particular entry. If that host file content really has this entry anywhere, it exists. I'm basically displaying this message, and I'm adding ensure equals to present. And at the end of it, I just return the hash table that I built. I built the hash table here, added the ensure keyword there or the attribute with the respective value, and I'm then returning the configuration hash table. So this is my get target resource, which is pretty trivial, right? We're not doing anything hi-fi there. It's pretty straightforward. Before going to set target resource, let's look at the test target resource. See, I have the same parameter set here also. I have hostname, IP address, ensure. And then I'm setting here, if you see the same way I'm building the host entry, and I'm checking here, does the entry exist or not? Getting a true or false value into this. Then I'm checking what is that is requested by the end user that we want to add a host entry or remove a host entry. So when I say add, the ensure equals to is basically set to present, right? So I'm basically checking different conditions here. If ensure equals to present, if the entry already exists, I'm returning true here. Okay, I'm setting $value equals to true. I can actually do a return true there itself. This is just the way you want to implement it, right? I'm showing a message and I'm saying $value equals to true. If the entry does not exist, I'm setting it to false. So when it does not exist, we have to go call set target resource function. Okay, that's the responsibility of DSC configuration engine. It will do the job there. Okay, and if ensure is set to absent, my logic-based configuration logic basically says again, go check if entry exists. It exists while it should not, because user is asking us to remove the host entry, and then I'm setting valid equals to false. If it doesn't exist, I don't have to run set target resource, right? So I set it to true here, and then return finally whatever is the value. Okay. Or if you prefer, actually you can do a return statement here itself. You can just return true, you can return false or whatever, whichever way you want to do that. Right. So the idea that you have to get here is whenever you are writing test target resource, you always have to check whether whatever action that needs to be performed is already performed on the target resource. Okay. If it is already performed on the target resource, you just return true. So that set configuration, target resource need not run at all. Right. So that is the configuration logic that you need to put into the test target resource function. Now moving to the set target resource, see what I have here is, I'm not checking really anything here, whether it exists or not, because that is the job of test target resource function. I just go blindly, if it ensure it's set to present, I just go blindly add the new host entry. And if it is set to absent, I just go delete it. Right? So the test target resource becomes really critical. How do you implement test target resource and the logic that you put there, that's what becomes really critical when it comes to managing the resources remotely using the set configuration. So the set configuration, the target resource basically depends on your test target resource output, and so it is important that you first work on test target resource and find out how you can actually verify whether the configuration is already present or not, etc. Those aspects, once you code, your set target resource becomes very, very easy. Okay. So this is the overall module I have. I just have 3 functions doing this job, right? And this is the mock file. Just make sure that you don't write mock files and save them as UTF-8 or another format. It has to be in either ASCII format or Unicode format. If it is UTF-8, basically the DS engine basically fails to see load it completely. Okay. And this is like PSD1 file. There's nothing much here. I just wrote I just generated this using my PSM1 file, and then I changed a few things here. Okay, this is just a data, right? So we need not really worry about that. Now let's go look at how we can use this custom resource now. Okay. So what I have here is my configuration and some configuration dummy name here, and I have the target node where I want to execute this. This is my resource. Host file is the resource that I defined in my mock also, right? That is the class name that I defined for the resource. Now if I do a control space, means that these are the parameters, right? Required and force attributes are added to all the resources. You don't have to really code anything for them. All you're really coding is the other pieces of it, the whatever attributes that you see here, host name, IP address, and ensure. So I've written code only for those 3 parameters. Required and force automatically come to you as soon as you write custom resource. Okay. Now let's execute this and see. Yep. Go back, CD demo, DOC, I should have host file test1 that generates mock for me. What I'll do is start DNC configuration. Again, wait, there's host file test. Sorry, there's a bug actually. It's not a position parameter, so I have to specify the name. Once I do that, see what it does. Okay, it already exists by the way. So my test target resource runs and it checks for this host entry and it says it already exists, and then it's skipping this test operation. Let's run with a different host name. Maybe I can put something like this. This does not exist. Since I modified the configuration document, I have to reload that. I recreate the mock file and run that. Oh, mistake. Run that. Now you see that the test target resource basically returns false here, which basically says this host entry does not exist, and then it goes and adds the new host entry. Alright? We can check that if you really want to see whether I've really done that or not. Let's go up and check on that. So we ran it on SRV2, so yes, 2012 R2. You see, I have these two things added already. Yep. And I can now say absent in my very similar to since because I said I coded absent also. I can remove the host entity also. Let's run this one more time and check whether resource is doing the job or not. Actually, it won't do that because we did not recompile it to recompile the mock. Let's do that. Now check. And you can see clearly in this here that says the host entry is removed. Okay. Now if I do a get whatever host configuration I was using, that's removed from the host file. Okay. So that is how the custom resources can be created and used. If you see the syntax for the custom resource also is absolutely same. I don't have to relearn anything here. All I have to know is how to put this configuration document together for any resource. The same thing applies. All right, let's see. There are a couple of questions here. Can't we define the configuration hash table in script scope and use it instead of line 80? Line 80. Where exactly is that? Yes. I'm not quite sure about the question. We'll come back to this in a minute. So Greg has a question. For DSC, do I need to run the script on a regular basis to ensure the state is all correct? Does DSC automatically do this? For example, if I say 7 with ensure present, if someone manually uninstalls, will state be automatically restored? Yes. And the local configuration manager gets it from a local staging folder automatically at a regular interval. Also, you can configure something called, we'll actually see that description in a bit, but you can also configure something called a pull server and configure your target nodes to get the configuration on a regular interval from that pull server. So that way also you can actually enforce the configuration that you want to see on the local systems or the target systems. All right, so let's go back to the content and see what we have. Look at how to create the custom resources and how to run all that, right? One more thing, if you have seen for the the host file demo that I just showed you, I'm adding the same host file entry different computers, right? But what if you want to add different host file entries for different target nodes, right? So you have to create if you have to follow the configuration document syntax that I showed you, you have to actually create multiple configuration documents for that. Go back and check that one more time, so we get a good idea of that. Now, if you see this, for both the computers, if I have to do this the way which is multi-node configuration management, same configuration will be applied everywhere, which is not something that we want, right? We want different configuration. The different servers might require different configuration attributes, etc. In that case, we can use something called configuration data. Okay, configuration data is a hash table. It's an array of hash table. Basically, you can specify it like this. So what I have here is node name is a mandatory attribute that is required. Node name basically specifies the name of the computer here. And you have host name that I want to add 01, etc. and 101 and different IP addresses. So I have two nodes with two different configuration data here. And then I have built the configuration document. If you see, I have specified node $allnodes.node name. So I'm basically taking the node name from here. So in this case, this gets replaced with server 2 and server 3, right? And then once it goes to the resource, the way we are using it. I'm saying $node, the host name is this parameter, and IP address is this attribute. Okay. So when I run this, let us see what happens. DSC host file configuration data. I just run that. It generates 2 more files for me. I'll say start DSC configuration, wait, robots, and then start, let's say, host file configuration data. Okay. It's actually running on both of them. On one of it actually found the host file entry already exists, so it skipped for it, but for the other one, it completed the job. Okay. So if you have multiple target servers, with different attributes that you want to specify for a given resource, you can actually use the configuration data like this. And the way we specify that also, observe this line of these changes. You see for a single resource earlier, we did not specify anything here. Since we coded the name of these servers here, right here, so we don't have to specify any further parameters here. But if you see another one where we specified multi-nodes, we specified a value, hyphen nodes parameter that we coded here, and then put all these computer names here. But to that, you have to specify hyphen configuration data, and then the all nodes, the array of hash tables. We specify that here. And then the configuration document automatically picks up all these attributes as required from the configuration data and then applies it on the remote systems, whether it's present or absent or whatever. Right. So that's how the configuration data can be used. So there's a question here. It's an old one. Okay. So moving on. So by using configuration data, you can actually separate your business logic of the configuration logic from configuration data, right? And that makes your configuration logic more reusable. So all you have to do is replace the configuration data whenever you want to run the same configuration logic on other set of computers or servers, etc. in your data center. So it kind of makes it reusable there. So we have been talking about a DSP engine going and applying all these changes, etc. So the moment you install PowerShell 4.0, the local configuration manager or DSP gets installed. It's called a local configuration manager. It is responsible for calling the DSP resources, right? And this is what is actually pulling up pulling the configuration and applying the configuration. So the LCM properties, it has a bunch of properties. You can update all those properties, using DSP itself. There's a specific resource for doing that. Let me see if I can quickly show you that. So if you see this, there's a desired configuration settings, desired state configuration settings resource. You can use that to specify the configuration mode. Then there are multiple other attributes also possible here. For example, if you see here, you have the inventory URL, which is used for pull servers or URL, etc. And you can also say the frequency for pull action. And also you can say configuration refresh frequency in seconds, etc. You can specify all this here. You can use this to modify the local configuration manager configuration itself, right? And then you can use this. There is a set DSC settings. I think there is a specific commandlet that you have to use. It's called I think set DSC local configuration manager, and then you basically specify output path. And then basically say SQL and demo. To specify this, the local configuration manager settings for this particular node will be changed according to this, right? We can actually run this and see over there. So the local configuration settings on server 3 must have changed now. Okay. I don't have a full server today to show you. That configuration is not complete yet. So been facing issues and configuring full server itself. So I don't really have that demo. But yes, full server can be used to automatically pull those changes from a central location and apply those changes as required. So we already talked about this. Configuration delivery using DSC can be done in two methods. The push mechanism, which is the default delivery mechanism. The start DSC configuration command is whatever we have seen, that is a push configuration. You're actually pushing the configuration from your staging location onto the target servers. And there is a pull mechanism also. You can use the DSC service. It's a part of Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2. The moment you install PowerShell 4.0, you get these features on 2012. So this is a desired state configuration service. It's actually an IAS endpoint. You can use that as a pull server location. You can configure all your target nodes to pull from that particular URL. So I showed you one inventory URL in the DSC configuration settings, and that particular setting can be used to configure a pull server location. Okay. So that's all I had. In summary, understanding DSC, and implementing custom resources can actually change the way configuration management is done for your applications and different resources that you manage in your data center. And I think the opportunities for system administrators and DevOps engineers, they're endless when it comes to using DSC for doing configuration management and making sure the configuration is consistent across dev, test, and production environment, etc. Okay. These are some resources. Go ahead and look at some of these resources, especially the DSC demo done by Jeffrey Snover and Kenneth Hansen. That's a great demo. And also, Steve Zindaki is a PowerShell MVP. He started a GitHub repository for the DSC custom resources. There are a bunch of them already. I think he has 3 of them for execution policy, power plan, and something else. So you can actually go look at that as a starting point for your custom resources. It's a great starting point. We also have a document on how to create those custom resources. I think that should also be very helpful.
Hey Ravi, I think there's one more question. Do you want to take a look at that?
Yeah, I'm looking at that. So suppose if I have a CSV with a different node name and their configuration data, can we do an import CSV and then pipe that as the configuration data? So Deepak, at this point, the configuration data has to be array of hash tables. So if you're doing an import CSV, if you can construct that array of hash tables for the node names, etc., it can be done. But yeah, it has to be that array of hash tables. So it has to be that way. Any other questions?
Well, Ravi, I think I don't see any more questions coming in. So thank you very much for a wonderful session. I hope all attendees did get to know something about the new things in PowerShell. So extremely thankful to your time, and then it was a wonderful session, at least for me. So I think we close it now. So thank you very much. So for the attendees, we will be having a recording link for this session. So it's just that it's going to take maybe a couple of days to get all the recording links, and then hopefully we'll update the same website. It's virtualtechconference.azurewebsites.net. So thank you very much. Have a good day, and have a good night if you're in India. If you're anywhere else, have a good day. So thank you, Ravi. Thank you once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Logan. Bye-bye.